4 years ago today, Donald Trump tweeted, "Mail-in ballots substantially increases the risk of crime and voter fraud." Which I know when you compare it to his usual unhinged, grammatically incorrect, lie-filled posts, it might seem pretty tame. But what he was doing there was setting up what would ultimately become the big lie. Around this time in 2020, Trump started to realize he might not win re-election due to how badly he bollocks to the COVID response, leading states to start passing laws letting people vote safely from home through the mail. So he began planting these seeds of mail-in election fraud in the minds of voters. And, well, we know the rest. Fast forward to today, and it looks like he's ready to once again sow doubt around the election, except this time with the help of some of his MAGA cronies. Tomorrow, Trump and House Speaker Mike Johnson, who was the leading peddler of the big lie in the House, will deliver remarks at Mar-a-Lago on, quote, election integrity. On top of that, CNN is reporting that last week, the Republican National Committee sent out a scripted call to voters saying Democrats committed massive fraud in 2020, which is just the latest example of how, under its new leadership, the RNC has devolved into a complete and utter clown show. Just this week alone, you had RNC chair, election denier Michael Whatley lump in Ukraine with China and Iran when listing the United States' aggressive adversaries. While co-chair and Trump's daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, said this with a straight face.
If you want to look at a family, and I'll say a man in Donald Trump, who has had nothing but misinformation and disinformation, as they like to say on the other side of the aisle, thrown at him every single day. I mean, there's never been anyone in history, I don't think, that has taken as much incoming as Donald Trump.
Joining me now is the former chair of the RNC, Michael Steele, co-host of The Weekend here on MSNBC. I mean, McKinley, Kennedy, and Lincoln were assassinated, you know.
Right, there's that. Oh, jeez. Look, your opening nailed the proposition. This has always been, and I've been giving a lot of thought based on conversations I've had with people inside and outside of the party and MAGA. There is a concerted effort that you're starting to see that's setting up the narratives for what is to come. This is not just about, getting to Election Day and what they're going to roll out, whether it is, threatening folks at ballot locations or gumming up the works by creating chaos and confusion in polling precincts so that they can then justify having, jackleg thugs show up all outfitted in black and looking menacing to scare off voters. It is also what comes afterwards, even with a Trump win. It is Project 2025. Yeah. It is the narrative around how the government is going to take shape under his leadership. Yeah. It is setting in motion all of the doubt and confusion now so that when he acts, everyone goes, oh, great, he's bringing calm and organization and structure. No, he ain't. Yeah. And I think that that's important for people to understand, Joy.
Eric Trump says the only purpose at this point of the RNC, let's just play him. Here's Eric Trump.
They have one objective: to get people out to the polls and to make sure that voter fraud does not happen in this country. And they will put every minute of every single day, they will use every single dime that they raise to make sure that Donald Trump is the next president of the United States and wins this upcoming election.
Except that they're going to spend most of it on his legal fees. But let me just give you a few data points for you to respond to. They're looking into the wind of Joe Biden now beating Trump in the majority of the national polls. They're looking at the Pew poll cratering all of this New York Times, CNN nonsense about this sudden movement of young people and black people toward the Republican Party. When you go by age, young people aged 18 to 29 and 30 to 49 are overwhelmingly leaning toward the Democrats. And that's whether you talk about men or women. There's no gender gap. And then it's split in 50 to 64, 65 plus. It's split among women, and then only a big thing for a big, Republican advantage among men. When you go by where Democrats have wide advantages, it's women with a college degree, it's urban voters, Hispanic voters, voters born in the 1990s, Asian voters, and religiously unaffiliated, and black voters. All of those are overwhelmingly advantages for Democrats. Republicans' advantages are Mormons, white voters without a college degree, veterans, rural, white men, and those born in the 1940s. The first group I showed you are the rising group population-wise. The second group are the declining group population-wise. They know they are at a disadvantage demographically, Republicans.
Yeah.
They have not changed that, and in fact, they've made it worse. I don't care what the 900-person polls say. These are the big polls, Pew.
Yeah, and the thing to note about that Pew Research poll is that poll was taken before the collapse under Arizona, before the elevation of IVF, before a whole host of things that have subsequently occurred that have further, I think, impacted those numbers.
Yes.
At the end of the day, which is why you're starting to see this narrative emerge around, the Democrats, are peddling in election collusion and corruption and so forth. That's, again, a lot of projection because we know where that collusion and corruption is going to be coming from. It's not the Democrats, it's the Republicans. And all this, the voter fraud from before, well, this last election cycle, both 20 and 22, have been the most litigated and investigated for voter fraud of any in our history.
That's right.
And yet, the only thing those Republicans produced, Joy, were Republicans who were convicted of voter fraud.
Correct. And voting like 9 times for Trump because they were so desperate because they know there are not enough votes for him. And this is why you have to understand why he did the violence. This is why he did January 6th. He knew he lost. He was embarrassed. He knew he was going to lose in advance.
That's it.
Michael Steele, thank you. When the O.J. Simpson trial began in 1995, it captivated a global audience in what was essentially the first reality TV show, pulling in all the themes: celebrity, wealth, tabloid culture, and how the rich and famous can often buy their own version of criminal justice. On Monday, the same issues will be in play in another trial, one that will also capture the attention of viewers around the globe: the first criminal trial of a former U.S. president, Donald Trump. This one centered not on murder, but rather around the falsification of business records to cover up an alleged affair with an adult film star before the 2016 election. Now, let's just let that sink in for a moment. Not only is a former president facing a criminal trial for the first time in our nation's history, but this historic criminal defendant could again become the president in a matter of months. NBC News has obtained a list of the potential witnesses who could be called to testify at the trial. For the prosecution, there are names that are expected, like Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, who took out a second mortgage to pay off Stormy Daniels, who engaged in the alleged affair with Trump and then was reimbursed by Trump with a check handed to him in the Oval Office. And there's Karen McDougal, a former Playboy model who also allegedly had an affair with Trump, both at a time when third wife Melania Trump had recently given birth to Trump's 5th child. But also on the list are people who are or were part of Trump's inner circle who could corroborate Cohen's testimony, including Trump's trusted aide, Hope Hicks, Trump's longtime assistant, Ronna Graff, and former Directory of Oval Office Operations, Madeleine Westerhout. And for the defense, we know of only 2 potential witnesses at the moment who could take the stand: a former FEC commissioner and Donald Trump himself. Joining me now is Catherine Christian, MSNBC legal analyst and former Manhattan assistant district attorney. I'm just going to make you the DA. I just keep on elevating you. I'm just making you. You're my DA. Let's talk about this, because it does feel like this trial will, in some ways, maybe be the trial of the 21st century. It's the only one that's going to probably go to trial for Trump before the election. How much of a spectacle do you think it will be?
I think it'll be a big spectacle, just the fact that it's Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Now, the first 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks are going to be boring because it's jury selection. So no witness is going to be called. Well, I'm saying it's boring, but of course, Donald Trump is going to take every opportunity he can in every break and after the case is over for the day, walk out and talk. But it's basically going to be like watching paint dry in that it's jury selection, which is, I think, trial lawyers will tell you is the most important
It is the most important thing. You win at jury selection,
So it's very important, but it's not exciting. It's not going to be Stormy Daniels or Michael Cohen on the
Well, it's not exciting to most, but I'm a nerd. It is exciting to me because I do believe voir dire and jury selection is the most important thing. Because for Trump, I anticipate he's going to try to do things like have his lawyers exclude anybody black. right? He's going to try to get them to include people who love MAGA, people who watch The Apprentice. Like, what are the kind of questions you think that his lawyers will try to ask to try to get him an ideal jury?
Well, they won't, because then, remember, the prosecutor and the defense can strike people and don't have to give reason. They have 10 each. It's called peremptory challenges.
Right.
So, and you can also challenge people for cause. So clearly someone who's like, I'm a MAGA, it's...
You can exclude them for that.
Yeah, you can exclude them. In terms of them knocking people off because of their race, typically you think the prosecutor's the only one that can be challenged with that. It's called the Batson challenge.
Yeah.
There's also, in New York, defense can also be challenged. You can't, as a defense attorney,
just like everybody black,
get everyone, all the Asians off or all
right.
blacks off. So I anticipate the prosecutors making that point, too, to the judge, say, Your Honor, every single black person there.
Why are they all off?
Yeah, who are normal.
Let's talk about some of these witnesses. So we're talking about, obviously, Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels. We know that's going to be big, and Karen McDougal. We talked about them. David Pecker, I find interesting because he's the American Media CEO. So he was the one they arranged to buy the life rights from Karen McDougal to pay off.
And kill.
And they did it differently. They didn't do catch and kill through him. In this case, Michael Cohen did it himself. How could that be an interesting witness for the prosecution?
He's very relevant because he was part of the conversations about the whole, how do we suppress this negative information? So he was very, as part of the National Enquirer.
Yeah.
So he's going to be providing the background.
Right. Let's play Karen McDougal real quick. This is her in her interview about why she sold her story.
Why do you think it was that it was after Donald Trump was the Republican nominee that they came back?
They wanted to squash the story.
You're saying they wanted to protect Donald Trump?
I'm assuming so, yeah.
You think it's because of a personal relationship with the guy who runs AMI is friends with Donald Trump?
Correct.
And so this is how it's an election interference trial. Because Donald Trump's
AMI is David Pecker.
Yeah. And so, right. So the idea is they don't want the Christian right who he's trying to court to know he's a cheater.
Yeah, you want to keep it private. Because also remember at that time, the Access Hollywood.
That had come out.
Grab him by the you-know-what came out. So you can't have Karen McDougal, Stormy Daniels, the Access Hollywood. He was afraid, Donald Trump, that would chill his
well, the joke's on everyone else because the so-called Christian right doesn't care. There's also this piece that I think is very key. Michael Cohen, when he himself was sentenced, here's what it said in part of his own sentencing, the sentencing memo about Michael Cohen. In particular, and as Cohen himself has now admitted, with respect to both payments that he made to Stormy Daniels, he acted in coordination with and at the direction of Individual One. The fact that he was convicted, Michael Cohen, in this payoff scheme, and Individual One is Trump, that seems to me to be powerful evidence.
That's very powerful evidence. He has baggage, Michael Cohen, but he was the fixer for Donald Trump, and he's going to testify to that. He was loyal to Donald Trump, and he's the only one who can talk about because he's the one who made the payoffs.
And also his baggage is that he went to prison for Donald Trump. Exactly. So his baggage actually, to me, what baggage? He's not been wrong. He said Donald Trump wouldn't leave office. He's not been wrong about that. And what baggage he has because he was doing crimes for Donald Trump. So it seems to me kind of hard to impeach him on that, but it'll be interesting to see how they try. Catherine Christian, always a pleasure. We will see you on Monday. We'll see what happens. Donald Trump is the single solitary reason that half of America now lives in a reproductive prison. It was he who nominated 3 justices who lied to all of us and to the United States Senate when they promised to respect precedent, including on abortion. Stare decisis, they said. Yes, stare de perjury is more like it. But they are who they are and always were. It is because of Donald Trump that millions of women are held hostage to a minority of right-wing men. But if you listen to his lies, you would think he did a good thing.
For 52 years, people have wanted to end Roe v. Wade to get it back to the states. We did that. It was an incredible thing, an incredible achievement. We did that, and now the states have it, and the states are putting out what they want. You're getting the will of the people. It's been pretty amazing when you think.
Yeah, well, if you listen to voters, Donald, they don't agree. In fact, they rightly blame you and Republicans for this nightmare.
I've seen so many idiotic, draconian attempts by the right-wing fascist GOP to take these steps. They want to move things backward. They want a white nationalist, right-wing fascist government.
I can't even imagine anything more horrifying than being forced to have a baby, especially if you're a child yourself. I can't even imagine that. I think it's cruel and unusual and sick.
The people who are in charge are making these rules, and we made a big mistake by by getting Trump in office in 2020. Didn't think we were going to make this big of a mistake, but it's going to haunt us for years to come.
Yeah, that lady's right. This will haunt us for years to come because Trump and Republicans have left it up to the states. And 14 states currently have laws in effect banning nearly all abortions at conception, while Arizona and Florida currently ban abortion at 15 weeks. A statewide ban on most abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy will take effect in Florida in May. Arizona's near total ban could go into effect in 2 weeks. South Carolina and Georgia are currently the only states that ban abortion at 6 weeks when they claim cardiac activity is detected. Now, to be clear, that is a forced birth misnomer because at 6 weeks, the pregnancy is still in the embryonic stage. An embryo does not become a fetus until about 9 weeks of pregnancy. And in addition, an embryo does not have a heart at that stage of pregnancy. Nebraska and North Carolina are the two states that currently ban abortion at the 12-week mark. Utah is the only state that currently bans abortion at 18 weeks of pregnancy. Iowa bans abortion starting at 20 weeks post-fertilization. However, Iowa's Supreme Court heard arguments today on whether to allow a far more restrictive law, which would ban abortion at 6 weeks to go into effect. And Republicans in that state are ready to drop the hammer on women if they get the green light. There are also a number of other states that have 19th century laws on the books, and Republican legislatures are ready to implement them. Wisconsin has a 1849 abortion law still on the books, which is currently the subject of a lawsuit. It will head to their Supreme Court, which has a liberal majority for now. One of their liberal justices just announced that she would be retiring in 2025, putting the liberal majority and women's rights in danger. And then there was the Comstock Act, the 1873 anti-obscenity law, which also remains on the books and which bans sending drugs or implements that could be used for abortion through the mail. Trump allies have said they plan to start enforcing it if he wins in November. And guess what? That would effectively ban abortion nationwide, no longer leaving it up to the states. So when they tell us that they've left it up to the states, they are lying to your face. It is not what they say, it's what they do. To that point, yesterday, Arizona Republicans who claimed they didn't agree with the decision of their Supreme Court were given an opportunity to repeal the 1864 law, but opted not to through procedural maneuvering. Their moves were met with Democratic outrage.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.